and welcome. I guess it is 7 o'clock and we are here in Pennsylvania where we have a little bit of snow, but not quite as much as the rest of you in some other states. And of course, some of you in the South might be just a little cold. Well, this is what we call Loom Maintenance 101, and you can tell by the title of it that we both have education backgrounds. So tonight my husband Chris is going to join us. But what I'm going to do, first of all, is tell you a little bit of background. First of all, the two of us have been refurbishing looms, spinning wheels for probably over 25 years. Now, we don't do that as much anymore. We used to do a lot of it. Now what we prefer to do is to help you. So if you find a used loom or maybe a spinning wheel even, and you need some assistance in getting it going and getting it working properly, please just send me a direct message. I'd be happy to help you. Now, why do we have to do this? Well, the loom next to me is my baby Wolf. It's a Schacht product. If you have any Schacht looms, these are very similar. They have metal that the shafts, or you might call them harnesses, go up and down, and a lot of other parts are very similar. If you happen to have a different kind of loom, you can type in some questions and we'll do our best to address them now. And again, if not, we'll do that later on. Last week I was weaving on this one and shaft number 3 was sticking. Well, if you weave and one of those keeps sticking, it makes you crazy. I had to keep pushing it down and pushing it down. I'm not sure if it had to do with the way it was tied up or maybe it just needs some cleaning. The loom does need some TLC, and tonight we're going to go through all kinds of things. We're going to make sure that the wood is in good condition. That means every once in a while I like to clean mine with Murphy's oil soap because there's a little bit of oil in your hands that do get on the beater as well as some other parts. We have the sticky shafts that we're going to remove them from this loom. Sometimes there's loose bolts, in the wintertime, summertime, the wood changes. There's also lint buildup. Of course, many of us who are fiber people, we have little dust bunnies everywhere. And also like the hinges. There's some parts that are moving, metal parts that are underneath the lambs, and we want to make sure they're working okay. Now in front of me, I have a cleaning kit, or I have things that you don't have, and Chris will go over those too. We have screwdrivers, we have toothbrushes, we have, now he likes this kind of wax, I like to use this kind of wax, but they both work. And there's oil, there's sandpaper, there's cloth, there's all kinds of things here, and there may be some other things too that you might want to collect if you're going to start working on your loom. Oh, one other thing. If you are weaving on your loom, sometimes, like I said, my shafts were sticking when it was warped. I took them off. It doesn't stick anymore. So I'm not sure if the tension is part of the problem, or not part of the problem, is when it was under tension, then they stuck. It's still a problem. I don't want it to happen. So we're going to clean this one, then I can get a warp on it and get it back in order. Well, I'm going to step out from in front of the camera, and I'm going to let Chris join us, and he's going to go through some of the things that he would do to make sure my loom is back and up and running. All right, come on over, Chris.
Hello, everyone out in TV land. Okay, as far as our work on the loom, primary, we're looking at cleaning things. We want to do some lubrication on it, and then we're going to check it for overall tightness, light nuts, bolts, hardware, to see that they're working the way they should be. As far as cleaning, as Marge mentioned, you get collected dust, you get your hands dirty, just sweat over time, you can get parts dirty, and so cleaning it, some of the Murphy's oil soap, rag, that will take a lot of that off and you'll be in good shape. On this one of the things we do when we're cleaning also, since we've got our handle here on the beater, that is something that would catch some of the dirt, so that can be cleaned in place. Or if you're doing something thorough like we're doing, you can take it apart and clean it. We take our readout, set it aside, and top handle of our beater, we would check that. Some of our oil soap if we need to. You may have looms that are new to you. Might be a new loom, might be an older loom. You could do something more than cleaning the handle on the beater, and that might include something like a little bit of steel wool to smooth it out. If your oil soap doesn't clean it enough, the wool that I use is considered a 4/0 wool. That's a 40000. It's an ultra fine stuff, and typically it won't take finish off, but it will take off a little bit of dirt, clean that off, and you'll feel a difference. It should feel glassy smooth when you clean something like that off. Your parts, all of them could be cleaned and smooth. You don't want them catching your fibers while you're doing your weaving. As far as working on your shafts or your harnesses, different looms hold them, guide them in different ways. So check on your loom and see what happens. If you come in with that sticky harness where it comes up, but then it comes down partway and stops, you've got some cleaning to do. Typically also, all of the harnesses are put in a particular order. Some people go so far as to number them. And for some looms, you have a right side up and an upside down. Take them out, put them back in the same order, then things will work the way it did before you took it apart. These, I took the shelf out of the top, they lift straight out, they come off of that jack mechanism.
And I'm going to throw in here that on these looms they have those little nuts on. We took the nuts off ahead of time.
Make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so watch how it comes off, set it down, set it back in order. As far as the cleaning goes, this end of the harness.
Someone has a question about Scotch-Brite pads versus steel wool. If they have soap in them?
So, no, Scotch-Brite pads could work. You want the softest kind you can get.
Okay.
You really don't want to take off finish, and I can feel on this one right now, there's a little bit of stickiness to it. All right. Whether the Murphy's oil soap takes that off, it might even just be a buildup of wax that we put on it in the past.
Okay, thank you.
But those two ends of the harness, it does feel like a wax buildup. Would affect how those stick. Okay, so part of our cleaning process, we're taking our harnesses out. Use your fingers a lot. You want to feel things as well as see. If you've got dirt, if you've got lint, that type of stuff.
And I'm going to throw in here too, those of you who thread your looms, the heddles do have, the eyes in the heddles are slanted one way. So you do want to make sure that when you put them back, they're all slanted the right direction. So depending on if you warp front to back or back to front, just, I know that's a problem with me. So that's one reason why I like to put them back the same way.
So take them off in order, set them carefully in order. You'd rather not have a stack and have them fall over.
Of course, this is an 8-shaft loom. You can do the same thing with a 4-shaft, especially now. Hello, I'm seeing different people come in. And I told Chris we might have about 5 people watching. We won't tell him that there's a lot more.
All right.
He's in teacher mode now.
Okay, the harnesses, you can see on the end of the loom. In this case, we've got an aluminum track that they ride in. And then we get the harnesses out. We'll take that tracking mechanism.
Yeah, I'm going to focus on the loom now, so.
These parts in here allow our harnesses to run up and down. This is our jack mechanism. You push your pedals, and it makes that harness move. What you're doing when you're checking this, I go through it with a rag, go through it with your fingers, and you're feeling for anything as far as stickiness might be. You're feeling for burrs. You're looking for little dust bunnies in there that might be in the way. You're cleaning, besides just getting all this stuff out, you're also trying to have it clean enough so you can see that everything, you can actually see that everything works the way it should. You get enough dirt on something and you can't see it, it's going to hide problems that you might have caught.
Yeah, I guess you can realize he's doing, you can't see what he's doing, but he's cleaning the same thing at the other end there.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can turn the loom anytime you want to. Someone has a question, we might address it at the end. I told her about cleaning a reed, so we'll do that at the end. I told her if we have time.
Okay. So, as far as cleaning, we're going through the whole loom. We're checking for dust bunnies, little particles of fiber. You could come through here with some type of a brush, checking your mechanism underneath.
Yep, that's a paintbrush.
It's an area you often don't get a good look at. And if you get some squeaking, it will often be in among those jacks. While it's apart, operate your mechanism.
That's going to be better to see it.
Listen to it. We've got some squeaking. Marge seems to be upset when her loom talks to her like that.
Well, just like many of us with our thing with. Someone wants to know how often do a thorough cleaning like this. Well, probably should be I should do it more often. Maybe I weave a lot. If you weave a lot, probably every couple months. If you don't weave a whole lot, you might not need a lot. But again, just sitting around, it gets dusty and dirty. So.
And of course, your ideal time to do it is between warps.
And I always want to get a next warp on.
It's a bit of a pain to try and do all this when you've got a warp on there. So, any movement, check to see that it's not catching on anything. That idea squeaks. It can be a challenge to find squeaks. All right. If we're doing some lubrication, well, first we're doing our cleaning. Let's finish that. All right, checking any of our parts, any type of cleaning, then we're doing our lubrication. All right. This loom is pretty clean. All right. So that's kind of nice. Take a look at my notes. Okay, checking your beater. What you want on something like that, it should be pretty stiff as far as easy back and forth, using it as a beater, but it shouldn't rattle. It shouldn't have sideways movement.
Well,
So that's going to be some of our tightening up.
yeah, what kind of, is that a Phillips head on the side of there, I think? I have to do that once in a while. And actually on my other looms, I have to tighten those up more often, the screws and the bolts and everything.
So in this one, they are Phillips heads. We're going through in our 3 steps. We're cleaning, and she's pretty clean. We're going to talk about lubricating it, and then at the very end, we'll talk about tightening the different connections. All right. So when you look at your loom, you start collecting your tools. You do figure out which ones you want.
Well, let's move the table out of the way, then we can see the loom better. Yeah.
In this case, we've got a Phillips screwdriver, and we've got 7/16 nuts, I believe.
Oh, the loom is this is a Baby Wolf loom. It's a Schacht product, and any Schacht loom, all of them are very similar. You know, if they're floor looms or Mighty Wolf or even the Wolf Pup, they're all very similar. But we'll answer questions about other looms too, and suggest people that send me private messages, and I'll help you out if you have a problem.
Okay, so we've got to clean. As far as our lubrication goes, what I have here is a small 2-ounce bottle of oil. It is a 10 weight 30.
Yeah, we just talked.
Straight 30 weight motor oil. You can get a variety of oils. You don't want something too thin, runs off. WD-40 is not a good lubricating oil. That's a spray on, that might stop a squeak, but it dries out. Something like this is a medium weight, which is good. If you get something too heavy, it doesn't flow into where you want it to be. All right. The little needle on there does a good job for us as far as letting us put it where we want it to be.
Yes, Denise, spinning wheel oil is that's exactly what that is. That's my spinning wheel oil. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that would work fine. Okay, wherever you have a connection between your wood and your metal, you're going to have some type of a metal pin in there. Works like a hinge, and it allows things to move. So, operate your part, listen to it, see if you get any squeaks.
Do you remember the one time, I'm going to go over here a minute, one time you had one of these looms, I don't know if you can see a little piece of metal here, it pushed out and it was rubbing against the other one. So, I mean, that was really rare. That should not happen. So that's something else if we're sticking.
Well, and when you're doing your cleaning and inspecting, you can feel all of these connections with your fingers. And if one of those pins is coming loose, you can take a small hammer, tap it back into place. But as far as your oil goes, you're going to pick a place that you want to lubricate. That needle point on there, one drop, if you can get it exactly where it belongs, that should be enough. All right. If you're not sure, do 2 drops, but then come back with a rag, wipe off your excess.
And that's 30 weight, right?
That's a 30 weight
Yes,
motor
somebody's
oil.
asked. Yeah.
Yep, that's
Okay.
a 30 weight motor oil.
Thank you.
Okay, so we lubricate our joints. We listen for them. If you've got a squeak, you might lubricate one, operate it some more, see if the squeak is there or if it's gone.
And if you don't use it for a while, I get a lot of lint in there. I've actually taken tweezers and other pieces of paper to slide in there to get the lint out.
You might use a small air hose. You might be able to blow it out. We've got the paintbrush that we showed you. You could also use something like a toothbrush and use that to get into tight corners and dig that out as well. All right. The lint isn't going to affect noise so much as it might cause premature wear. The oil has a tendency to catch your dust and that type of stuff. So cleaning it is good, and then lubricating it is also good. So check your mechanisms, find the squeaks, put a little oil on it.
And of course, just like us, you take your car to get it fixed, and it's making a squeaky noise, and it doesn't. When you get there, what'll happen is after I put a warp on the loom, it'll probably be some squeak going on. And
yeah, you may not always find it.
Yeah,
right away.
you don't find it. It's really hard to correct.
Any other questions on lubricating? You can write those in.
Yep, I think we have it.
We use the
Thoughts
oil.
on canned air for cleaning lint or dust off?
Sure,
Yeah,
that would work.
yeah.
Yep.
Cords. When to replace the cords? Well, for me, you can see it. Sometimes you can see them on the baby wolf down there. The cords on the bottom. What happens with those, if you have those, there's a little plastic thing on the end and they pop off. So that's because it's old. If you have another loom, like my Luette or whatever, you might actually see some wear and tear. So you don't really have to do anything until you start to notice something. At least that's my opinion.
The other lubricant, we mentioned the idea of this paste wax, and Marge has, this one is a Johnson's paste wax. I have it set up like I do my shoe polish cans.
One more, non-petroleum options for lubrication. He's thinking.
That's actually a tough one.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a little research on that. We'll think about it. Keep on going and we'll think about it. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one.
My paste wax, the place I use that is actually the areas that you deal with your hands a lot. On the beater here, we've got an edge that the shuttle slides against, and I also have the handle, and I also have front and back beam that the warp goes over. All of those areas, I use this rag, rub a little wax on it, wipe it on, This rag does have wax on it right now. I wipe it on, and then I give it a couple of minutes. And I let it evaporate. And then I'll come back with a dry rag, and I'll buff it off. Have I been there a couple of minutes? Nope. But I've actually been there probably long enough that this will let me buff that a little bit.
And that actually helps if you have a boat shuttle, to be honest. If you clean that, if you know, it'll slide. Of course, be careful, it'll slide right off.
The shuttle will slide smoother.
Yeah.
And the top half of the beam there that your hand is on, it will feel silky smooth. And the same thing up in here. You want that nice and smooth as well. You can wax the entire loom if you want. If the loom doesn't have any finish on it, that's fine. You can wax it. Just know that you have that wax. If you ever want to refinish it, you have to take that off.
Yeah, my spring loom has a lacquer finish on it, and I think Leclerc's also do. So you know that you have to clean them. You won't. I guess you wouldn't put wax on them.
But that fine, well, you can.
Yeah.
But I would still use that fine steel wool to smooth out whatever finish it is, and then dust it off, and then wax it, and then buff it.
And the paste wax he uses floor wax.
Yeah, this brand is Johnson's. You also have Butcher's paste wax. I think there are another couple brands. They have some that are just made for furniture, like for antique furniture. This can be in the local big box department stores where they sell all that lumber and hardware.
Do you buff it then?
Yeah, this can will last me for years. I put it on my metal tools, I put it on my wood tools, I put it on her looms. It's just wonderful stuff. Think of it on the floor. It doesn't make the floor slippery, but it protects it. In the same way it protects your looms.
And somebody wants to know, I guess, putting on your shuttle. We've done that. He's actually, that's another thing.
You put it on your shuttles?
Yeah.
Yep, I put it on my table saw. It's just a wonderful way to protect it, and it also helps give you a nice feel to it. You know, you want to feel quality equipment. Okay, we've talked about cleaning. We've done some lubrication with the oil as far as our connections go. We've done some lubrication with our wax as far as shuttles are fine, and also on the loom itself, on the beater, on the handles. And finally, as far as tightening the loom obviously is a wooden machine, and as you use it, I hear Marge weaving all the time. She's got this beater going with regular movement. If you're on a polished floor, sometimes the loom moves across the floor, doesn't matter. All of this hardware that holds it together will come loose over time, and you go from a rigid wooden structure to something that tends to rattle. And when it's rattling, when it's loose, you've got lost energy, you've got lost motion. It doesn't work as well. So it helps to periodically feel your loom and tighten things up. So the tools that we got the screwdriver for the Phillips, wherever they may be. We do have some wing nuts on here. Wing nuts are the type of thing that come loose over time just because of that vibration. You find them on the carpet. But the other nuts on this one, and many companies will do this, they'll use the same type of bolt and same type of nut all through the loom. So you could get by with one wrench that does everything for you. And then you go through and you feel and you snug things up. Once you've snugged them up, go back and feel the loom.
Question, lubrication wood on metal areas?
Okay.
Thinking about a bolt through the lambs on, she's a Mira, not a Leclerc loom.
Okay. You do want lubrication if you've got a moving part, a moving wooden part on a metal bolt or a metal shaft. All right. My background, besides working looms and spinning wheels and so forth, I've also worked in antique grist mills, and I've worked on a variety of other machines. And anytime you have that type of a connection where you've got wood on metal, you've got a choice. You can go with no lubrication, or you can lubricate it. In the old grist mills, they always lubricated. We've seen, I don't know how many antique spinning wheels where the shafts, the axles that the wheel spins on and so forth, that will have had oil applied to it over the years, and it'll actually be a streak that runs down from that shaft because that oil has been there, has done its job, but it's also dried. But your piece is going to last longer if you have some type of lubricant on it compared to not having it. Mentioning spinning wheels, I don't know how many people I've had, they come to a spinning group and they're struggling with their spinning wheel.
Okay, here's another good question. And then I know why Buffy's asking, can you use WD-40 silicone on the metal parts where the shafts slide up and down? I know that the Schacht company suggests that, but what do you think about using that?
My understanding of WD-40, it's a great product in some applications, but what it was developed for was to eliminate moisture in some type of mechanical movement, and that prevented that moisture from inhibiting that. It's not made as a long-term lubricant. It is so thin, it will go on, and in a very short period of time, it will evaporate or soak into the wood, and then you're back to no lubrication.
So it's for a quick fix.
So it would make something work a little bit easier for a short period of time. A little bit of oil in the right place, our 30 weight or 1030 weight, will last much longer. And that's what I would recommend. I have both, and I use both in their applications, but I don't expect WD-40 to last near as long as some 30 weight oil might. We're talking about tightening up nuts and bolts and going through the loom, feeling for the loose joints, snug them up. A note about our nuts and bolts. Many of the companies come through with a standard nut, standard bolts, like these two here, just they're not typically that big. That nut is loose on that bolt unless you snug it down really tight, in which case you can deform the wood. Premature wear. So what I like to do on looms when I have them, when they come in and we're doing refurbish work, is I'll get one of these of the right size. This is a lock nut. Up here where my little finger is, there's a little nylon ring washer that's attached to that nut. And that goes onto the bolt, causes an interference, and it doesn't spin. It helps keep that bolt and nut tight over a longer period of time. So I'll go through a loom like this. We get one in that's used. I'll go through and replace all the nuts with lock nuts. And then when I snug them up, it lasts much longer before I have to go through and do it again.
All right, we have the shafts. So what are we going to...
You want to put the harnesses back in?
Well, do we need to do anything to the edges of those?
Okay.
Sometimes there's black stuff on mine because it's really dirty.
So we're feeling our harnesses that ride in the slots, making sure that they are smooth and we don't have any stickiness. And we can slide it back into place. If we haven't done this before,
Yeah, these are these tricky ones.
if we haven't done it before, I would be coming through with my rag and my paste wax, putting the wax on the end, putting some wax on the other end. It isn't a matter of you got to be really neat about it. You don't need to be sloppy, and you don't need any excess amount. Let it dry, buff it off.
Yeah, and I probably did that about 6 months ago, so that's still pretty good on that.
So yeah, that's in good shape.
Yeah.
Again, use your hands just like in woodwork and metalwork, your fingers will tell you through touching it whether you've got burrs on there that might cause premature wear or cause it to stick or anything like that.
I know people have asked me about the heddles being like, if they're dirty or rusty or whatever. As long as the hole in the middle isn't rusty, they're fine, if you have an old one. And what I found is you could even, as if you put on a warp, maybe the first yard or two, it's going to rub through there and just that's waste and cleans it. So that's one way to work on that. Okay, someone says my harness frame's corners are breaking.
Harness frames corners, okay.
And what's the best way to glue them? How are they put together, I guess? We don't.
Okay, you're likely to have, I'm not sure we can see this one, I'll
You can,
wipe it off.
yeah.
These have a
Yeah.
open mortise and tenon, is what that's called.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they have a lap joint, where it's kind of a handshake.
Yeah.
They can be re-glued. You just need
What glue? What would be the best glue to use?
Heck, Elmer's has always been good.
The wood, Elmer's
A
wood?
regular wood glue or a yellow wood glue would be fine. Find somebody that's got a little bit of experience with woodworking, because it would be good to scrape off the old glue before you put on the new. And then have them clamp it, and then when it's all done, again, run your hands over it to make sure you don't have any sharp edges. You know, these are made where the actual corner is rounded off. That helps it move through those guides without catching. But yeah, checking your harnesses. There's almost no reason to have anything in here with sharp edges.
Okay, while you're putting those back, what's your comment about cleaning a reed?
Uh,
I guess if it's really, really, really
yeah,
dirty,
well,
or if it's not too bad.
I guess we've got two subjects there. We can clean a reed, and we also have to deal sometimes with a rusty reed. And rust would be a real problem, or could be. And so, I guess in both cases, the way I would start would be to use some fine steel wool and just see what that does for you as far as cleaning off rust or dirt toward the surface. And of course you turn your harness or your reed around and do the other side. If you have lots of little dust that you want to, you know, something like a toothbrush going in there is going to go all the way through. So if you've got a collection of dust, that would get that out. If you've got dust that's sticking on there due to, I don't know, excess wax or somebody sprayed some oil on it to protect it, you would want to clean that out pretty thoroughly. But even there, your warp, as Marge said, your first couple inches of warp is going to take a lot of that stuff
for that
off
as well
too.
as your heddles. Someone, I need to know more. She said Leclerc has specific recommendations for Jack Loom's metal parts. I can't ask you, can you, Nancy, if you know what those are, or I guess what you're telling other people, they could also go onto Leclerc's site and see what the recommendations are for theirs, because I'm not sure what Leclerc says, but thank you for sharing that. Will any Leclerc owners out there, you can contact the Leclerc and they can answer those questions. I think we are almost done with we're going to put a couple more things together here.
See if we got any squeaks.
Well, unfortunately, like I said, what's going to happen is when I put the warp back on, that's when I'm going to find out if we have any squeaks or not.
Yeah, the warp does add a load to your harness, to your jacks.
Yeah.
So when you move something, while it runs,
A little bit of squeak there.
There's some squeak. I can't hear it from where I work.
He's downstairs. And actually, after a while, it doesn't even bother me, to be quite honest.
That might be in the treadle.
Ah, we did, yeah.
All the way down by your feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you notice down, I don't know if you can see, there's some metal at the very bottom there. There are some metal, the metal and wood there, the hinges down there. So we'll go, and that we'll check too once we get everything back together. We can't do everything while everyone's watching, you know.
Okay.
And he's going to try to figure it out. No?
It's up in the jack.
And he was saying earlier, if you have someone else, maybe a child or someone who likes to sit on the floor, they could listen to hear and say where the squeak's coming from and point it out to you. You know, a little helper is always a good idea.
And their hearing is better. They can hear things we can't hear.
Well, we're getting some thank yous. I think we're just about done, unless we have to look at our list. As you can see, I have a very supporting spouse who has supported my love of fiber for a very long time. But then I support his woodworking tools, all his engines, motorcycles, you know, all those kinds of things. And we will be married 40 years this year. Woo woo! Hoot hoot hoot! All right, I'm gonna pop over here. I don't know if I can get myself in the video or not. I'm gonna sit down over here next to Chris, and have everything moved out of the way right now. So hopefully I'm not chopping my head off. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll let him maybe watch the recording later on, and it will be on WAFA. I think I usually have it for 30 days, and I might even download it and then maybe upload it on another channel. So again, thanks so much, and you're welcome to contact us if you have any specific questions. Take care, everyone.